On June 1, 1953, a baby boy named Richard David Falco was born at Brooklyn's Elizabeth General Hospital in New York City. His mother, Betty Broder, was having an affair with a married man named Joseph Kleinman. To conceal the scandal and protect the reputations of those involved, Betty listed her newborn son's surname as Falco, the last name of her estranged husband, Tony Falco, who had abandoned her years earlier. In a few days, the infant was given up for adoption. Pearl and Nathan Berkowitz, a Jewish couple living in the Bronx, were ecstatic to finally become parents. They renamed him David Richard Berkowitz and raised him as their only child in a modest apartment in the Soundview neighborhood. To outsiders, the Berkowitzes seemed like a typical, loving middle-class family. But behind closed doors, young David was already wrestling with profound feelings of abandonment and rage. David was a troubled child. He was prone to violent temper tantrums, episodes of aggression, and periods of deep withdrawal. Teachers described him as bright but distracted, a boy who struggled to connect with peers. Neighborhood kids sometimes bullied him for being overweight and awkward, fueling his growing resentment and paranoia. From an early age, David exhibited pyromaniac tendencies. Fires fascinated him, and he often set small blazes in empty lots around the Bronx, standing back to watch them burn. Later, psychiatrists would describe his fascination with fire as an early indicator of deeply rooted psychological disturbances, a feature sometimes linked to the so-called McDonald triad of serial offender behavior. Despite his behavioral issues, David maintained a close bond with his adoptive mother, Pearl. When she died of breast cancer in 1967, 14-year-old David was devastated. Her death left a gaping emotional void. Nathan, his adoptive father, tried to support him, but David's grief curdled into anger and confusion. He became increasingly isolated and began to spiral emotionally. By his teenage years, David's disconnection from the world around him had intensified. He performed poorly in school, dropping out frequently and re-enrolling only to drop out again. He grew obsessed with finding his birth mother, hoping to fill the emptiness left by Pearl's death. Eventually, in the 1970s, he located Betty Broder and discovered the truth about his biological father and the circumstances of his birth. The revelation only deepened his feelings of rejection and self-loathing. After finishing high school, Berkowitz enlisted in the U.S. Army in 1971 and was stationed in South Korea. His military records show a competent soldier who never rose above the rank of private. While in the service, he reportedly began engaging in sexual encounters with sex workers and possibly contracted a sexually transmitted infection. After 3 years, he was honorably discharged and returned to New York in 1974. Back in the Bronx, Berkowitz struggled to fit into civilian life. He held a series of low-paying jobs, including working as a taxi driver and a letter sorter for the U.S. Postal Service. Neighbors and co-workers described him as quiet, polite, and unremarkable, a loner who mostly kept to himself. Yet behind the reserved exterior, a maelstrom of paranoia, rage, and violent fantasies boiled just beneath the surface. In the mid-1970s, Berkowitz began to fixate on the idea that demons were communicating with him, commanding him to kill. He claimed later that his neighbor Sam Carr's black Labrador retriever Harvey was possessed by an evil spirit who ordered him to murder. Though this explanation would fuel headlines and speculation, many experts believe Berkowitz's demonic dog claims were exaggerated or fabricated to bolster an insanity defense. The darkness finally erupted into real violence on Christmas Eve 1975 when Berkowitz attacked 2 women with a knife in Co-op City in the Bronx. Both survived, but the attacks were not immediately connected to the series of shootings that would follow. In his confessions, Berkowitz later admitted these stabbings were his first attempts to kill. The killings began in earnest on July 29, 1976, in the Pelham Bay section of the Bronx. Donna Loria, 18, was sitting in a car outside her home with her friend Jody Valenti when a man approached and fired a .44 caliber revolver. Donna was killed instantly, while Jody was wounded but survived. Over the next year, New York City would be plunged into terror. Berkowitz stalked young couples parked in cars, lovers walking late at night, and women alone on quiet streets. He shot his victims without warning, often approaching vehicles or sidewalks under cover of darkness and unleashing a hail of bullets. His preferred weapon was a Charter Arms .44 Bulldog revolver, a powerful firearm that left devastating wounds. Ballistics testing quickly revealed that the same gun was being used across multiple crime scenes, linking the murders and sparking the terrifying specter of a serial killer at large. As the body count rose, the media dubbed him the .44 caliber killer. The randomness of the attacks and the youth of the victims gripped the public imagination. New Yorkers lived in fear, changing their routines, avoiding dark streets, and even dyeing their hair to avoid matching victim profiles. On March 8, 1977, Berkowitz struck again, shooting Virginia Voskerichian, a 19-year-old student, as she walked home in Queens. She was killed with a single shot to the head. Panic deepened. Police began coordinating massive sweeps, setting up roadblocks, and interviewing thousands of potential suspects. But it was Berkowitz himself who cemented his infamy. He began writing taunting letters to the NYPD and the press, adopting the sinister moniker Son of Sam. His first letter arrived in April 1977, addressed to NYPD Captain Joseph Borelli. The letter read, in part, "I am a monster. I am the son of Sam. When Father Sam gets drunk, he gets mean. He beats his family. I am the son of Sam. I am a little brat." The killings continued. On April 17, 1977, Berkowitz shot Valentina Suriani, 18, and Alexander Esau, 20, as they sat in a parked car in the Bronx. Valentina died instantly. Alexander succumbed to his injuries hours later. At the crime scene, police found another letter addressed to the police, filled with cryptic threats and mocking tone. On June 26, 1977, he wounded Judy Placido and Sal Lupo in Queens, once again attacking a couple in a parked car. Less than a month later, he committed what would be his final shooting on July 31, 1977. That night, he targeted Stacy Moskowitz, 20, and Robert Violante, 20, parked in Bath Beach, Brooklyn. Stacy was killed. Robert was blinded in one eye and partially in the other. This final attack led to Berkowitz's capture. Witnesses in the area noticed a man loitering near cars and writing parking tickets. A woman, Cecilia Davis, noticed Berkowitz's suspicious behavior and reported his license plate to police. Detectives traced the plate to Berkowitz's yellow Ford Galaxy. On August 10, 1977, police surrounded Berkowitz's apartment building in Yonkers. When detectives approached his car, they saw a rifle on the back seat and a bag of ammunition. Inside the vehicle was a letter addressed to Inspector Timothy Dowd of the Son of Sam Task Force, threatening more killings. Berkowitz emerged from his building around 10 p.m. Officers confronted him at his car. According to police, Berkowitz smiled and said, "Well, you got me. How come it took you so long?" Inside his apartment, police found disturbing evidence: maps of the crime scenes, satanic writings, diaries of his arson fires, and an arsenal of weapons. During interrogations, Berkowitz confessed quickly and calmly. He described hearing voices urging him to kill. He claimed Sam Carr's dog was possessed and issuing commands on behalf of demons. Yet, as interrogations progressed, police and psychiatrists suspected he exaggerated these claims to escape full accountability. In May 1978, Berkowitz pleaded guilty to 6 murders and several attempted murders. His trial was brief. Despite initial questions about his mental fitness, he was found competent to stand trial. On June 12, 1978, he was sentenced to 6 consecutive life sentences in prison, approximately 365 years. At sentencing, Berkowitz declared, "I'd like to just say that I'm very sorry for what happened. I want to pay for what I did." Yet many doubted the sincerity of his remorse. His murders left a lasting scar on New York City, a city already reeling from crime, economic hardship, and the lingering fear that monsters could strike without warning. While incarcerated, Berkowitz underwent a profound transformation. In the mid-1980s, he announced he'd become a born-again Christian, renouncing his Son of Sam identity. He began referring to himself as Son of Hope and published Christian essays and testimonies from prison. He claimed to feel genuine remorse for his crimes and declined multiple opportunities to seek parole, stating he deserved to remain behind bars. Over the years, conspiracy theories arose suggesting Berkowitz hadn't acted alone. Some investigators, notably author Maury Terry in his book The Ultimate Evil, posited that Berkowitz was part of a broader satanic cult orchestrating the murders. Berkowitz himself has both confirmed and denied aspects of these theories over the decades, creating an aura of mystery around the true extent of his crimes.
As of 2025, David Berkowitz remains imprisoned at Shawangunk Correctional Facility in New York. Now in his 70s, he spends much of his time writing religious materials and maintaining correspondence with supporters and victims' families. Despite his new persona as a repentant convict, Berkowitz remains one of the most infamous figures in American criminal history. His rampage left 6 people dead, 7 wounded, and millions terrified. His letters, filled with taunts and occult symbolism, transformed him from a faceless gunman into a media phenomenon. Berkowitz's legacy endures as a chilling reminder of how a seemingly ordinary man, a postal worker, a quiet neighbor, can harbor unimaginable darkness. The Son of Sam murders exemplify a terrifying reality that sometimes monsters wear the most unremarkable masks, blending seamlessly into the rhythms of urban life, waiting for the moment to strike.